I find it difficult to reason with MAGA people, even when they're old friends or family, because there's no common set of facts. It's as whenever I go to visit somebody, that, one of these people, it's like as soon as I walk into their space, it's like all the charts have been flipped upside down or mirrored backwards. Like when Trump gets the worst approval numbers ever, when 63% of Americans strongly disapprove of him on every policy, and 71% of voters polled that they voted recently with the intent of repudiating Trump. Yet Trump says that those are the best numbers he's ever gotten. The number for disapproval becomes the number for approval. That's how the worst president ever brags about being the best president ever, because there are still just under a third of Americans who will believe whatever he says, even if all the facts say otherwise. Because to the MAGA faithful, the facts don't matter at all. My own mother bought into MAGA, and she even admitted to me that she does not want to hear the truth if it doesn't match what she would rather believe. I asked her why she thought the government was shut down, and she said it was because Democrats did it. She said that the Democrats took the money away from us, from our military. Every time I visit her, she's watching Fox propaganda, so she doesn't have any idea what's really going on. And every time I complain about something Republicans did, bills that they pushed or that Trump said or signed, she says it was the Democrats who did that. There's no way to explain what really happened because she doesn't want to see the data. Instead, it's as if we are casting spells at each other, where whichever narrative gets narrated in a full incantation, uninterrupted, is the one that becomes reality. I honestly think that that is how she thinks, because even when I was a kid, if I said something about science or history or current events that didn't match what she wanted to believe, then she complained that I jinxed it. She used those words. And she wants me to let her believe whatever she wants to believe because she thinks then that'll come true. She's not trying to change the future. Make-believers are trying to change the past. They think that if enough people believe it, and if they believe in it hard enough, it will become what the reality always was. She really thinks that. I wonder how many other people do too. Because I've heard this sort of thing from a few other people, those who believe that reality is an illusion, that everything is whatever we want to believe that it is, because we're all just living in a dream of Brahma, where we are just figments of some god's imagination, and where changing our minds means changing the imaginary dreamscape along with it. But those of us who live in the really real world know that there are verifiable facts, objectively verifiable facts, that do not change regardless of how hard you try to wish them away or pretend they're not real. Republicans say that Democrats shut the government down in order to give free health care to illegal immigrants, specifically referring to Obamacare, which many Republicans rely on without realizing that Obamacare is the same thing as, just another name for, the Affordable Care Act. Congressional Republicans are also conflating two different topics. In 1986, Ronald Reagan signed the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act, ensuring that anyone who needs emergency medical treatment will get it, regardless of legal status or ability to pay, because an emergency is a time for urgency and efficiency, not bureaucracy. Republicans are now trying to undo that, and they're confusing the Emergency Medical Treatment Act with the Affordable Care Act in order to spin the lie that Democrats want to give free health care to illegal immigrants, when the truth is that illegal immigrants were never eligible for ACA benefits. So everything we hear from Republican pundits, from the president to the propagandists on the right-wing news sources, is biased and deliberately deceptive distortions, literally demonizing over half of the country. That's why they say that everything that George W. Bush did wrong was somehow Obama's fault. They called Obama a Muslim socialist when he was neither, and Zoran Mamdani, who really is a Muslim socialist, is cast as a communist jihadist, and a radicalized communist jihadist at that, because exaggerated sensational fiction is what Republican politics runs on. And most Republicans only know one side of the story, and it's mostly deceitful propaganda. So whenever someone like me comes in and tells the truth, then they accuse me of lying. Like this one guy who emailed me to say,
"Your political videos are awful. You either lie in them repeatedly, you're so cocooned in your echo chamber that you don't even realize that 95% of your claims are lies."
remember, he's the one in the echo chamber, not me. I'm out here in debate world, being challenged all the time. So I challenged him to quote me verbatim to show that anything I ever said was a lie. His answer to that came in the form of the following list of comments, all referring to statements I made in the video. You still put up with this. He said,
"Tariffs cost us foreign investments, but we've seen hundreds of billions in both promised and realized investments in the U.S. from places like Japan, TSMC, and even U.S. companies that have historically invested elsewhere, like Nvidia and Apple. The list of foreign investments in 2025 is fairly substantial."
Is it? Because the one specific example he gave, TSMC, isn't what he thinks it is. I read that the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company is currently exempted from the 100% tariffs that were proposed for semiconductors. Their major U.S. investments have been a key factor in this exemption, and this is based on the idea that the threat of tariffs brought about the exemption, not the tariffs themselves. The same article from Fortune that he cites reads quite clearly that this is the case. There had been hopes TMC's plan to invest an additional $100 billion into the United States would shield Taiwan from new tariffs. Taiwan also pledged to increase investment in the United States, purchase more U.S. energy, and boost defense spending to more than 3% of the GDP in a bid to head off Trump's levies. My accuser's claim is apparently a misunderstood misreading of that Fortune article. And just for giggles, Apple and Nvidia both are large purchasers of TSMC chips. And a lot of TSMC's foreign investment is directly related to previous administrations and things like the CHIPS Act of 2022. That means Biden gets the credit for that, not Trump. I can go on about how the foreign investment in that one manufacturer in Phoenix did not bring the promised or expected jobs to the States. Instead, they brought a large contingent of their own employees from Taiwan for the high-paying positions at that Arizona plant. And I'm sure you can find plenty of examples of how actual tariffs have harmed foreign investment. If I keep digging, I'm sure I can find further proof that the foreign investments my accuser is trying to push as Trump's successes are not what they seem on the surface. And whataboutism is still not a good look. So if you're watching this video, then I have a question for you. Have Trump's tariffs cost us any foreign investments? Yes or no? AI says yes. There is evidence that uncertainty and disruption caused by Trump's tariffs have cost the U.S. foreign investments, including significant declines in foreign direct investment, where many global companies either paused their investment plans due to uncertainty, or they were disadvantaged by trade disruptions, which have the effect of deterring inflows and slowing economic growth. So, I think it's obvious that I didn't lie about that. The second lie he accused me of, falsely, was,
"You said he murdered innocent fishermen in Venezuela as a statement of fact. You didn't even try to hedge your statement with any uncertainty, but you can't know that. The Department of War has infinitely more surveillance abilities than you."
But we are not at war, and the War Department has nothing to do with this. Trump did not seek approval from Congress to commit acts of war, as is required in the Constitution. Nor was there any investigation or discovery on any of these craft. Trump simply and illegally ordered them to be blown out of the water. Well, I guess nothing is illegal when the Supreme Court stupidly grants you immunity for any official thing that you do. So I have to ask another question, my viewing audience. Has Trump murdered innocent foreign fishermen in international waters? Yes or no? Colombia's President Gustavo Petro explicitly accused the United States of murder, identifying one victim as an innocent Colombian fisherman named Alejandro Carranza. The family of Chad Joseph, a man from Trinidad and Tobago who was killed in another strike, also insisted that he was a fisherman and not a trafficker. So I didn't lie about that either. But my accuser continues.
"Moreover, I wouldn't expect them to release the details on how they know these are narco-terrorists, because then future narco-terrorists would know how to avoid future surveillance. Government agencies always want to protect their sources and methods so they can continue using them.
But right after the media cycle reported for a second time about another strike on the alleged narco-terrorist, Trump stated that he was authorizing CIA operations in that area and that boots on the ground might be possible. He has also alluded to potential ground strikes in the area based on these clandestine operations. Does his public announcement of covert intent protect our sources and methods? Or is that just another unsanctioned act of war that he can't do, but he's doing anyway because nobody will stop him? We have no idea how or why Trump arbitrarily targeted these fishing boats, which is why U.S. policy has always been to detain and investigate such people, not to simply blow them up along with any evidence there might have been. Our intelligence agencies haven't even declared that there is any evidence to go on. Even if that evidence is classified and they can't tell us what it is, they can still tell us that they have it. But they didn't, because they don't. Trump is just committing war crimes, flat out.
It is possible one of the people aboard was a fisherman by trade, but often in underdeveloped countries, resources like boats can be used for multi-purpose activities.
So my accuser is suggesting that drug runners secretly stashed illegal cargo on a fishing boat while the innocent fisherman was looking the other way, and that instead of U.S. forces arresting him to search his craft, they had no choice but to shoot first and ask no questions ever, on the assumption of what someone imagines that someone else might have done, just because they're in a poorer country and that's how we think those people might have acted?
Now, I'm not going to say they were absolutely narco-terrorists, because I don't know that to be a fact, but I'm going to err on the side of the people who have all the surveillance capabilities.
My accuser apparently admits that I was right when I said that Trump is murdering innocent foreign fishermen in international waters. Just like I said. Because there were no arrests, no seizing of contraband, just munitions lobbed against helpless people who would have immediately surrendered if they knew the attack was coming, even if they were really running drugs. So we're not treating them like criminals. We're not treating them the way we would if we really thought they were criminals. We're treating innocent fishermen like targets of unjustified murder, terrorism, because the United States under Trump now performs and promotes acts of terrorism.
You said Trump stole classified documents and uploaded them to nobody knows who, but probably Putin. This is again baseless speculation stated as fact. There's no evidence that I am aware of that he uploaded any of these documents. I even asked ChatGPT just to be sure, and it wasn't aware of any evidence suggesting that these documents were uploaded.
If there is no evidence that you're aware of, then of course it would be smart to ask what the evidence is rather than accusing someone of lying about it, just because you don't know. Assume less, inquire more. And instead of listening to an automated program that so often gets things wrong, maybe he should have listened to an expert like federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner.
Well, friends, based on some new reporting, we have now learned that even after the FBI searched Mar-a-Lago, including Donald Trump's personal office and recovered classified documents, after that time, Trump had even more classified documents in his office at Mar-a-Lago, and these documents had been uploaded to the cloud.
So I didn't lie about that either. If I relay factually accurate information provided by qualified experts in the know, that is not me lying. If you refer to your own ignorance, biases, and misunderstanding to falsely accuse me of dishonesty, that's lying. In the Bible, they call that bearing false witness.
Moreover, Trump insists he declassified these documents, which gets into classification law and presidential authority.
Trump also admitted in an audio recording that he had not declassified these when he could have. And he admitted then that he was sharing still classified information with people who had no clearance to see it.
Does Trump need Mr. Joe Pencil Pusher to sign off on the classification of documents? No, he doesn't. The The president can declassify anything at any time. He needs this power. For example, when discussing policy with foreign leaders, he can't have his conversation restrained by the fact that a government bureaucrat hasn't given the president the authority to discuss that matter with them.
But Trump was no longer president at that time, which means he had no power at all when he stole those documents. And there is no record of him having declassified any of them when he was president. He even admitted to his friends that he had not.
My biggest gripe here is with the lie about uploading the document and sharing them with probably Putin. I think your misunderstanding of classification law is just a misunderstanding, not an outright lie.
It's neither, and I'm not the one with a misunderstanding. We have no idea who all had access to that data once it was in the cloud. All we do know is that Trump deliberately stole, intentionally transported, willfully concealed, and illegally uploaded classified information, and that he knew he was sharing stolen classified documents illegally with people who didn't have the clearance to see it. We also know that he keeps giving in to Putin. Trump and Putin have had multiple meetings where there were no recordings and where all in attendance were sworn to secrecy. There were also news reports that Trump revealed highly classified information to multiple top Russian officials. Trump casually spills classified information with whomever, even people as unqualified as Kid Rock.
Just being pretty, we're looking at maps. And I'm like, am I supposed to be like in on? I make dirty records sometimes. I'm like, I do it here.
You didn't think you'd have a hand
What do you think we should do about North Korea? I'm like, what? I don't think I'm qualified to answer this.
Then, when he was no longer president, he illegally continued to have secret meetings with Vladimir Putin, specifically, multiple times. There's no record of what was ever said in any of these occasions, and why would a president or a private citizen want to hide that from us? But he does, and he is. And we know that Trump always takes Putin's side, even against all of our collective intelligence agencies.
I do concede he stole government property, something every president has done since at least Bill Clinton. So Trump should not face any harsher punishments for this crime than any other president has received. That is to say, no punishment at all.
While it is true that Joe Biden and Mike Pence both did have some few classified documents in their homes, that was apparently accidental and unintentional, and an oversight, which both men corrected immediately as soon as they became aware of it. Whereas Trump deliberately ordered more than 15 boxes of classified documents to be taken out in secrecy. Then he ordered that they be moved around his property in an attempt to keep investigators from finding them. Then he bragged about having them illegally and mishandled them willfully with malicious intent. That's quite a bit different than what Biden or Pence may have done absent-mindedly, unknowingly. So that's 3 things I was accused of lying about, which all turned out to be true. But the accusations don't stop there.
We can't have selective prosecution of Republicans like we saw with J6, for example, but not against BLM during the so-called Summer of Love, where BLM caused orders of magnitude more damage to the country than the J6ers did, and also killed dozens of people, where J6ers didn't directly kill anyone. Yet the Biden admin focused all their attention on rounding up as many glorified granny trespassers as possible, while dedicating not even a fraction as much resources towards going after BLM.
I think all the people who accuse me of lying need to get their facts straight, because so often they're wrong about everything, because right-wing media are the ones lying to them all the time. This article cites Armed Conflict Location and Event Data, ACLED, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working in collaboration with researchers at Princeton University to monitor protests and political violence around the world. ACLED found that the overwhelming majority of the more than 9,000 Black Lives Matter demonstrations that took place across the U.S. after the killing of George Floyd have been peaceful. News reports at the height of demonstrations over Floyd's killing cited dozens of deaths in connection with protests, but many of those turned out to be examples of deadly crimes carried out in the vicinity of protests rather than directly related to the demonstrations themselves. They report that 9 of the people killed during protests were actually Black Lives Matter demonstrators. That's BLM being killed, not killing other people. 2 other people were conservatives who were killed after pro-Trump patriot rallies, which didn't have anything to do with the BLM protests, but they're still listed as, Americans killed participating in different political demonstrations that year. So the dozens of people are from different political demonstrations or rallies or what have you. You just assemble them all together. So there were no dozens of people killed in one place. That list includes another 14 people who died in other incidents linked to political unrest outside of Trump rallies and BLM demonstrations. Yet, this idiot accusing me pretends that the J6 rioters were peaceful trespassers, ignoring what we've seen with our own eyes, and despite all their collective criminal convictions in multiple courts of law. He said that Black Lives Matter demonstrators caused orders of magnitude more damage to the country than J6ers did, which is demonstrably false, as investigations by multiple agencies have shown. And my accuser also said that BLM killed dozens of people when actually they never killed anyone, but 9 of them were killed by racist gun nuts, meaning most likely Trump supporters. And this misguided fool accused me of being in an echo chamber, which is right where he obviously is. He repeats the lies he saw on Fox News and Newsmax, OAN, and that sort of thing, and he accuses me of lying instead. And this confirms the old saying that it's easier to lie to someone than to convince them that they've been lied to.
You said Trump told Netanyahu to finish the job of genocide in Gaza.
And that is true. He did. Google it and you'll see. Trump was talking about Netanyahu's bombing raids when he said that Netanyahu should finish the job. This is the 4th thing I was falsely accused of lying about that turned out to be the truth. And one of my friends said that when someone says finish the job without any caveat, any reasonable person would take it to mean to resume all actions currently being taken, business as usual, to complete a specific goal or task. In this case, actions were being taken that went beyond what Netanyahu or any war criminal would be willing to state for the public record. Regardless of any stated goal, the Palestinian people were and are being genocided. Finish the job includes actions that can be considered genocidal.
Israel's wiping out Hamas. Hamas hides itself among women and children in order to protect themselves from the consequences of joining a terrorist organization and committing acts of international terror. Collateral damage is not now, nor has it ever been, considered a genocide.
My buddy Kurgan said that my accuser tries to normalize violence by putting everything into a wartime setting. I mean, really, collateral damage? As if that is really ever truly acceptable by a truly caring society? I know it can be a harsh reality, but we should never be okay with it. And my good friend Joe addressed this by saying that my accuser completely ignores decades of bad treatment of the Palestinians by IDF and settlers, knocking over houses of relatives of suicide bombers, because you can't punish the dead suicide bomber, so instead they punish his family. This is a war crime, and it has been for at least the last 12 years or so. Neither side is justified in killing civilians, and this accuser's definition of collateral damage is completely wrong. Collateral damage is incidental, accidental killing of civilians, not wanton and indiscriminate killing of civilians. I say that you cannot fire into a crowd of random people on the excuse that there might be a terrorist in there somewhere, just like you can't lob missiles into a foreign fishing boat on the excuse that there might be drugs on board.
Hamas has fired tens of thousands of rockets into Israel. These are dumb rockets that just land where they land, so there's no precise targeting, meaning Hamas is trying to kill as many Israelis as possible.
My friend Joe says that my accuser is completely ignoring times where the Israeli government told civilians to move across certain supposed corridors only to bomb those safe corridors. They have bombed Red Cross installations. They've attacked journalists and aid agencies, including a particular refugee camp where they wanted to get 2 guys, which they could have taken out with snipers or at worst 2 Hellfire missiles, which would kill the couple and injure about a dozen. Instead, they dropped 1,000 or 2,000 pound bombs on it, killing over 100 and wounding hundreds more.
They would like nothing more than to genocide the Israelis, but their technological capabilities are fortunately too rudimentary to make that a possibility.
I don't know if that's true. It's certainly not true for all of them. But would they still feel that way if Israel hadn't been continuously and unnecessarily brutalizing Palestinians for so long before Hamas struck back on October 7th?
Like the whole idea of like people think that there was like a ceasefire before October 7th. That's not true. 3 weeks before October 7th, Israel bombed Gaza 3 days straight. And there was no music festival to do that. I mean, before October 7th, there was 234 Palestinians killed in the West Bank, which is not even in Gaza. There's like 70 kids killed. That's without October 7th. The thing is, you only see October 7th, but the fact is, like, if you're a Palestinian, what options do you have? You throw rocks, you're a kid, you throw rocks and your limbs will be broken. You join armed resistance, you're going to be called a terrorist and killed. You don't do anything and you sit in your home and your home will be confiscated and your land will be confiscated in the West Bank. You boycott BDS and you don't have a job. So what are supposed to do?
Israel, on the other hand, sends out leaflets, roof knocks, and other warnings to encourage evacuation of civilians before striking.
Reports are that Israel has literally turned all of Gaza into rubble. They have snipers shooting children, and that's been going on for a while. And then they're shooting journalists now too, if they're in the area reporting on what they're doing. Yet this guy says that it's not a genocide because Israelis sent out warnings online in an area which has little or no internet signal. Another friend of mine said that parroting the Hamas hides behind civilians line doesn't make the mass killing of civilians suddenly okay. Over 70% of those killed are women and children. Hospitals, schools, and UN shelters are being hit. That's not Hamas hiding. That's Israel bombing indiscriminately. Under international law, killing civilians, destroying hospitals, and starving a population isn't collateral damage. It's a war crime. Doing it on a scale that wipes out an entire people's means to live, that's genocide, no matter how you dress it up. If Israel's really doing everything possible to protect civilians, then why is the civilian death toll over 30,000? Why are aid workers and journalists being targeted? You don't bomb hospitals and refugee camps and then pat yourself on the back for dropping leaflets. That's not mercy. That's marketing. Nobody's defending Hamas, but Israel's right to self-defense doesn't give it the right to collectively punish 2 million people. You don't get to flatten entire cities because terrorists live there. That's not defense. That's revenge. And this idea that leaflets and roof knocks make it humane? Please. Giving someone 5 minutes to run before you bomb their neighborhood doesn't make you moral, it just makes you efficient. This isn't about who's better at killing, it's about accountability. The UN, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty, and even former Israeli officials have said that this violates international law. So no, you don't get to call it defense when it's literally mass starvation and bombardment of civilians. Calling this genocide isn't an exaggeration, it's a legal definition. Systematic killing, starvation, and displacement of a people is genocide. Full stop. You don't get to redefine it just because it's your side doing it.
Israel ships tons of aid into Gaza.
Oh, yeah, they do. And then they shoot the families trying to get the food. 1,400 people as of August were confirmed to have been killed at this sort of baited trap. Now look how Israel responds when others try to offer aid to starving Palestinian families. The Israelis have reportedly destroyed 1,000 truckloads of aid. The Freedom Flotilla reportedly carried about 15 tons of aid, including medicine, diapers, and basic foodstuffs. Yet Israel detained them and even actually tortured Greta Thunberg for her part in trying to help. There is no way to defend that. So let's not pretend that Israel is or ever was innocent or benevolent in the face of a population of terrorists. The most you can say is that there are occasions when Israeli forces are not quite as bad as Hamas. And it's also important to remember that Hamas is not Palestine, and that not all Palestinians are Hamas, but all Palestinians are helpless targets of Israeli munitions.
Israel doesn't want to genocide Gazans.
That's right. Israel doesn't. Many Israelis don't. But Netanyahu does.
So saying it's a genocide despite the measures Israel has put in place is ridiculous.
Those measures mean nothing when you won't actually let anyone evacuate. I mean, what is that? We're going to shell where you live, where you're just trying to survive, even though we know that you have neither the means nor the capability to leave this one little section of the world that we choose to let you live. This is the fifth thing this deluded child accused me of lying about, when everything I said was true. And his accusation includes all these claims that are obviously and verifiably false. So he's lying not only about me lying, he's also lying his own lies. But it is not a lie for me to call this genocide. 5 experts in international law and genocide studies were asked about this, and they said yes, the evidence clearly shows a genocide is occurring in Gaza. Israel's military campaign for many months has reached the high threshold of genocide. Israel's warfare tactics have met the threshold for genocide in Gaza. While the legal case is complex, it is reasonably arguable that Israel's actions amount to genocide. And while genocide remains a contested term, there are other ways to describe the atrocities being committed by Israel against Palestinians in Gaza. A coalition of leading aid groups urged the international community to take stronger measures to stop the offensive after a commission of United Nations experts accused Israel of committing genocide. The world's leading associations of genocide scholars have declared that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. A resolution passed by the International Association of Genocide Scholars states that Israel's conduct meets the legal definition as laid out in the UN Convention on Genocide. A growing number of experts are calling on diplomats to address what they describe as genocide and famine in Gaza. And consequently, the United Nations Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory, including East Jerusalem and Israel, said in a new report that Israel has committed genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The Commission urges Israel and all states to fulfill their legal obligations under international law to end the genocide and punish those responsible for it. Even leading human rights organizations based in Israel say that Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, and that the country's Western allies have a legal and moral duty to stop it. So again, I didn't lie. I called it what it is.
You say ICE is a Gestapo. The Gestapo brutally tortured and executed enemies of the state and the Jews. ICE is giving people who are here illegally a free ride home, or sometimes to the most convenient country of our choosing.
They are kidnapping innocent people, including those with legal work visas, and sending them to foreign gulags to die. And the way we are denying them their due process means that we are no longer a free country. That's kind of a big deal, I think.
There's no comparison between ICE and the Gestapo to any rational person.
I have to wonder how my accuser would know what a rational person thinks, since he doesn't even accept when we explain it to him. The first thing we have to do is understand what we're talking about. I saw where someone had summarized it this way. ICE is, and the Gestapo was, the official secret police force of a charismatic dictator, be it Trump or Hitler. Its primary function is and was to suppress any opposition to the Christian nationalist regime and its ideology. This involved hunting down and eliminating political dissidents, anyone perceived as an enemy of the Trump-Hitler regime, including liberals and or communists, critics, resistance members, and other people deemed undesirable by Adolf Trump, face the ICE Gestapo's brutality. Enforcing Donald Hitler's policies and ideology, the Trump administration plays, and the Nazi Gestapo played, a crucial role in implementing laws that target minorities and immigrants. Persecution of minority groups. ICE is, and the Gestapo was, a key instrument in the persecution of minorities and immigrants, Jews, Romani people, homosexuals, trans people, leftists, and other groups marginalized by MAGA and or Nazis. Facilitating the use of concentration camps. ICE agents are, and Gestapo agents were, deeply involved in rounding up immigrants, Jews, Muslims, atheists, and other targeted groups to be sent to concentration camps like Auschwitz and Alligator Alcatraz, playing a critical role in exterminating and or enslaving those deemed undesirable. ICE and the Gestapo operate with unchecked authority outside the bounds of the law and judiciary. They employed brutal methods like torture, intimidation, surveillance, and arbitrary arrests to achieve their goals, which are creating a pervasive atmosphere of fear and distrust among the populace, whether it's Germany a century ago or in the U.S. today. In essence, ICE is, and the Gestapo was, a powerful and terrifying tool used by Trump and Nazi regimes to solidify authoritarian control and to brutally suppress any and all forms of opposition. That's how rational people see it anyway.
The criticism of ICE covering their faces while they're executing their duties is ridiculous, since we know rabid leftists would terrorize their families if their identities were made public.
You mean like the guy who found out where Nancy Pelosi lived and then broke into her house and hit her husband in the head with a hammer? Oh, except that guy was a radical right-winger, as domestic terrorists usually are.
We know this because they terrorize the families of Supreme Court justices who rule against their interests.
Except that leftists haven't been doing that like right-wingers do. Here in the U.S., at least, right-wing conservative Christians engage in domestic terrorism 3 times more often than leftists do.
They terrorize politicians and their families who don't align with their interests.
You mean like the guy who dressed up as a cop to murder Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hartman and her husband and their dog in their home? Oh, wait, that guy was a right-winger too, a MAGA Trump supporter, not a leftist. And he was targeting Democrats, exactly the opposite of what my critic just said. So I guess he'll just ignore that and the fact that this assailant had a list of dozens of other political targets in 3 other states.
And they terrorize the ICE agents while they're just trying to do their jobs.
No one terrorizes ICE. ICE has become a terrorist organization. They are doing it illegally, in defiance of the Constitution, in service to a hateful dictator.
In this political climate, it makes complete sense for them to want to cover their faces.
Because they're doing evil, and their criminal hostility and violence is due to hate.
And this is just the first few minutes of the video.
Yes, in the first few minutes of that video, he found 6 opportunities to falsely accuse me of lying when I told the truth every time. And he also sprinkled his accusation with a handful of his own falsehoods. And this is important to mention, too. This kid challenged me to a debate, not a discussion or even an inquiry, where in either case he might change his mind once he knows more. No, he's not interested in knowing more. He wanted to debate me over whether I lied because he jumped to his own favorite assumption, and he's going to cling to that even if it's wrong. That's what believers do. They make believe. He should know what any honorable person would know, that we should never accuse someone of lying until or unless we can immediately prove the allegation, by first proving that the claim as stated verbatim is factually false and not even technically true. Then also, step 2, showing reasonable indication that the claimant knew it was false when they said it anyway, that it's not just an innocent mistake. You'll never get to step 2 if you can't even complete step 1. If you accuse someone of lying when we can all show that what they said was verifiably accurate, then that makes you the liar. And if you tell your own lies while accusing another of lying, then that just shows that the truth never mattered to you anyway. You're just going to keep on assuming whatever you want to believe, regardless what the truth is. Because I don't see this guy ever saying, okay, well, I was wrong, you were right, I shouldn't have accused you of lying. You really think that's going to happen? That never happens.